the notebook, noted that the stamped pages begin with 27 and end with 56, right?
That's correct.
So if my math is correct, that's 29 pages. Would you agree with me?
Sure. I'm clearly not good at counting, so.
Just take the plunge with me here.
Sure.
In addition, the first two pages, I guess, the first page and the back of that first page are not stamped. Is that right?
Correct, and also they're not graph paper like their other pages.
And just that first page just has the questions on it. And the two questions are apparently, number one, what is the meaning of life, right?
Correct.
And what is the meaning of death is the second question.
That's correct.
And then we see that symbol that we saw that was located both on the sticky note and on the calendar in the apartment on Paris Street, correct?
That's correct.
Now, of the then 31 pages, you reviewed with counsel pages that related to planning at the theater, is the way you characterized it, I think, or counsel did. Is that right?
That'd be correct.
And those were pages 48, 49, 50, 51, and then half of 52 being that diagram that you just most recently described, correct?
Correct. I would say that those were the explicit pages referenced the planning.
Yes, and there were a few other isolated quotations that counsel had you read from the notebook as well, other than contained in those pages. Is that right? The section about the weapons, for example.
Yes, I would agree with that. Again, this is, I would say, the explicit reference to planning. Yes.
Now, if I can just go through a little bit, and understanding that the jury is going to get to read this, immediately following the questions on page 2, if I could have page 2, ma'am, of People's Exhibit 341. Now, this appears to be, well, what it says, and I'm sorry, can I have page, what I guess is page 3 then? This appears to be addressed to somebody, to 3 different people, is that right?
That's correct.
Goober, Chrissy, and Bobo, and it says love yous, Y-U-H-S, correct?
That is correct.
And you're aware that this refers to Mr. Holmes' family members, is that right?
Correct. Mother, sister, father, in that order.
If I could have the following page, which is stamped 27, please. The next section of this notebook is, I guess, entitled Insights into the Mind of Madness. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
And there's some writing down here about men being uncreated equal and what is equal to. And then there's this series of stick figure diagrams and zeros and ones, correct?
That's correct.
And then on the bottom of the page there's a stick figure, and it says equals to infinity, parens, priceless / unlimited value, good. And then there are a series of 10 infinity symbols within quotation marks, correct?
That's correct.
Under that, it has what appears to be some kind of a design or something, and then 10 zeros in quotation marks, right?
Correct.
And then at the bottom it says equal to question mark, infinity or zero or negative infinity. Murderer value may be equal to dead, equal may equal priceless. And then there's a star saying by similar reasoning equal equals negative infinity parens unlimited value parens may be possible, correct?
That's correct.
And there's another similar kind of equation, I guess, underneath that, on the bottom of that first page, right?
That's correct.
If we can go on to page 28, please. Here there appears to be more discussion of what equal equals and zero equals and negative infinity and positive infinity and some questions about justice and those type of questions, correct?
Correct.
Do you see at the bottom where it has, if life has no value, all is just, life and death are not demarcated, any and all actions have no import on anything, moral imbeciles are those who side with zero or negative infinity. The ideals of society are founded on positive infinity. Correct?
With the exception of import, I believe that's impact.
Impact, correct. Thank you for correcting me. And that continues on to page 29, if I could have that, please. There seems to be more of a discussion there about all men created equal and all men created unequal, and then says my mind, and there's some kind of a symbol there, a line with two arrows going in opposite directions, and then a zero in the middle and negative infinity and positive infinity on opposite ends of the line, right?
Correct, and a check mark above the zero.
Check mark above the zero. And under that, there's a discussion of life's fallback solution to all problems, death, multiplying both sides of an equation by zero. When mankind can't find truth, comma, untruth is converted to truth via violence, parens times zero. Correct?
Correct.
And then there's some more equations. And then at the bottom of the page it says violence is a false response to truth while giving the illusion of truth. This is widely understood with murder being unjust. However, mankind hasn't found a better alternative, and there is still mass violence, war, and unfortunately these forms of violence are misleadingly still justified. And then at the end it says, I have spent my entire life seeking this alternative so that the questions of how to live and what to live for may be addressed. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
If I could have page 30, please. Now, page 30 seems to address alternatives to death, and generally speaking, there are 4 different alternatives. Ignore the problem, delay the problem, pawn the problem, and then love, hate at the bottom, correct?
That's correct.
And understanding that the jury is going to be able to read through all of this, there appears to be a discussion, a brief discussion of each separate topic there.
With the exception of the 4th, love, hate. Yes.
And what's at the bottom there is there's some kind of 3 different curved lines there, and then it says, despite knowing, death is false and a suboptimal response, I couldn't find a working alternative, period. If all of, continued on to 31, please, ma'am, life is dead, then the questions, dash, why should life exist, question mark, what is the purpose of living, question mark, are then 0, semicolon, irrelevant. Correct? Did I read that right?
I just think it's a comma, and that's the dot above the I for irrelevant, but yes.
Okay, it's not a semicolon, okay. And then we have a section here that is entitled Self-Diagnosis of Broken Mind, correct?
Correct.
And then there's just a list of what appear to be psychological terms, I guess, for want of a better description. Symptoms or diagnoses or things along that line. Is that fair?
I would agree with that.
And on the next page, 32, please, ma'am, talks about symptoms attributed to self-diagnosis, correct?
Correct.
And different symptoms are mentioned. Catatonia is the first one, is that right?
Yes.
Developed recently, often lasts for 3 to 5 hours in the middle of the day. If present in morning, and I know it isn't particularly bad, can goad myself to move by thinking, quote, Bambi, get up, you must get up, end quote, correct?
Correct.